was making six figures and I bought myself a Tesla and I'm just living life. So it was really good at the time, yeah. Oh, but you asked me why I left.
Thank you for joining me here today on the Go at Manav. For those that do not know you, could you please tell them a bit more about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. So my name is Kierian, and where do I start? It's always the hardest question when people ask you to introduce yourself. I guess I could summarize. I'm basically foster kid from Scotland. I've had a crazy, squiggly career journey. I basically moved to New York City when I was 26, got married to an FBI agent there. And I lots of stuff happened in between that time. It's quite a long story, but he basically left me, and I was on my own in New York City, struggling. I don't know if you've been, or if anybody's got this idea of like the American dream. That just wasn't the case for me. I was working 5 jobs as a nurse. It, I was waitressing, I was bartending, I was teaching soccer, I was doing everything I can just to stay afloat. And then I won the lottery. And yeah, I won the lottery, and that gave me enough money to pay off all my credit cards and whatnot. And then I moved to Hong Kong. I had a friend there. Well, she had just moved from New York with her boyfriend, and they said to me, you know what? You don't have a husband anymore. You don't really have any friends over there. How about you come over and check out Hong Kong for Christmas and New Year's? So that's what I did. Fell in love with the city. And she said to me, you know, you've got a degree in English literature. How about you get a job teaching? And an apartment had just opened up underneath her, and she was like, I'll talk to the landlord, we'll get you a job, we'll get you the flat. Everything just fell in place. The universe, it was a sign. And so I packed up my life in New York City, moved to Hong Kong, and that's where I found the American dream, except it was the Hong Kong dream because education, I mean, you know a bit about Hong Kong, right? And the
Mm.
education in Hong Kong. What was your experience like?
Well, first of all, I think we might as well just end the podcast because we've covered so much in a span of 2 minutes and a half. But yes, no, definitely. I mean, so for people watching, I also are listening right now. I was born and raised in Hong Kong. I lived there for 18 years before moving to the UK. And yes, I mean, it's still home for me. I tend to go back twice a year to visit my family and my friends and loved ones. I will still say it's one of the best cities to visit. If not, it is the best city to visit, just of the hospitality, the people. As of this year, I don't have any plans to go until December this year. But Kirian, let's go back in time because we've already covered a lot, but let's try and
Yeah.
dig deeper because I'm now very intrigued to learn more about who you are as a person. But before we understand a bit more of who you are today, let's go back to when you were about age 21. So what were you doing at
Okay.
age 21?
Actually, 21 wasn't a very eventful time for me. So what happened was, as I mentioned, I was in foster care. I grew up as like a foster kid. I had my own house by 18, and I actually fell pregnant and had my daughter at 19. So I was actually working part-time, and I was in uni doing my degree in English literature, pregnant, all three of them at the same time. So I'd had my daughter by 21, so she was only 2 years old. Yeah, I think I was just finishing up at uni and still just working. So just very sort of normal, full kind of life, nothing exactly happening around that time.
Wow. What was it like being a young mother?
It was tough because growing up in foster care, I never really felt like I had my own family that loved me. And I actually had quite a sort of crazy pregnancy when I was sick. I was almost 6 months pregnant when I found out that I was pregnant. I was really, really sick, and they did loads of pregnancy tests and everything. They were like, no, no, you're not pregnant. You're not pregnant. It must be something else. So they started testing me for all sorts of different things. And like I said, when it was almost 6 months, I think it was 5.5 months, I found out they did a blood test. They're like, you're pregnant. I have a very rare blood type, and she had a different blood type from me. And that was what was making me really sick. My body was basically fighting her off. What was really traumatic is that they said to me, oh, you're only 19. If you want, you can actually abort this baby. So in Scotland, it's a little bit different. You can abort babies until they're like 6 months, and it's really horrible because they can actually survive and live from 6 months onwards. So, but I decided to keep her, and yeah, it was tough. Like I said, I don't have a family of my own to help or support me. I was working, doing school, just surviving, but that's just kind of the person that I am, just get on with it. And also, she was now my family. Like, she gave me unconditional support no matter what. So that's, yeah, how I started.
Wow, amazing. I mean, I did not expect that. Usually people would say they were at university. Your story is very interesting, to
Mm.
be a young mom and you were living in Scotland. What was that like for you?
Yeah, I mean, Scotland is it's a lovely place to visit, don't get me wrong. And I hope I don't offend any Scottish people by saying this, but Scotland is very close minded. There's not a lot of things that happen there that allow Scottish people to be cultured or experience. They'll maybe go to their holiday to Spain once a year, and that's about it. They really don't know about the outside world, and I'll lump myself in there with that was me at 21. At that young age, I didn't have a clue about other countries, other cultures. I hadn't tried any other foods. Like, I grew up with just lots of other white kids as well. There wasn't any diversity where I lived, growing up in like the 90s. Yeah, so it was just very naive, and everybody just doing the same thing. Like, I've got friends that still live in Scotland that I went to high school with, and they just bought a house right round the corner from their high school, and they're
Well,
still there, still doing the same thing. Just got a job, 9 to 5. Like, I felt like there was no ambition, there was nothing really happening there, and I craved more than that.
when did you realize that you craved more than just the usual?
Well, I'm an avid reader. I love to read, and I love to read fantasy novels. And so as I was growing up, escaping into new magical worlds was always like so exciting. But I did read a lot of books about America as well. And that was, even though I didn't know a lot about America, I knew that that was somewhere that I wanted to go. And so I saved up so hard to visit America, and I must have been around 25 at this point. Yeah, like I said, I saved up. I went on a solo trip to New York City. And actually, it was a funny trip because this is the trip that I met my ex-husband. And I was in Times Square just by myself. And I saw a massive crowd of people in Times Square. And I'm like, what's happening? Must be something good. So I'm pushing my way to the front with my camera. And it was a car bomb. There was a bomb in a car
Oh,
in Times Square, and the FBI were securing the area. And that's how I got talking to my ex-husband. That same exact trip, there was a volcano that erupted in Iceland. This must have been around 2011, 2011, around
okay.
about that time. I don't know if it made news. Barack Obama, I think his Air Force One got grounded, and basically my flight got cancelled. And then I ended up in New York City for a month. And
Well,
so it gave me enough time to get to know my ex-husband. We went on dates, Yankee games and stuff like that, but should have taken it as a sign, car bombs and volcanoes erupting.
so this was all happening when you were 25 or
That was,
26?
yep,
Wow,
25.
25. So what was 26 like for you?
Well, 26 was the year that I packed up my life in Scotland and moved to New York City to get married. And that was very much a whirlwind romance. We actually, I don't know if you know much about wedding dresses, but I went to this shop called Kleinfeld. It's pretty famous because it's one of the stores on Say Yes to the Dress. It's a wedding show where women go in, they try on dresses, and they say, yes, this is my dress. But there's always lots of drama. I was in there picking out my dress, and they heard my accent, heard my story, and they wanted me to be on the TV show. But I didn't go on it. I didn't go on because my ex-husband, because he was in FBI, the nature of his job, he wasn't allowed to be on camera.
What was the reality show about?
Wedding dresses. Yeah.
Oh, wedding dresses, wedding dresses.
Wedding
Yes.
dresses, yeah. That's so I went there to pick out my wedding dress, and the show basically they follow your love story, and usually there's some drama like, oh, I really want this expensive dress but I can't afford it, or oh, I'm too fat to fit in this wedding dress, what am I going to do? There's always some sort of drama. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was funny though, because even though we didn't go on that show, we actually went on Jerry Springer twice, but not
Oh,
in not the main stage. We were in the audience.
I see. That's really cool. So you were
Yeah.
living in New York for how many years?
Five
5 years.
years. Yeah.
And then when you were going to leave New York, what was that like for you?
I mean, so this is something I like to talk about. I really like to inspire others to take chances and take risks because, like I mentioned about Scottish people, they never take risks and they never take chances, and therefore I feel like they just stay in the same position their whole entire lives. My type of personality, I guess it's a personality trait, is I take risks no matter what happens. I don't think about the consequences, which might sound actually like not great advice, but
That's all right.
I learn from my mistakes. But basically, moving from New York to Hong Kong was a massive risk. I had at that point a 6-year-old daughter, and so it was really risky. But like I said, you need to make these decisions to grow, get out of your comfort zone, live the best life you can, and you learn from your mistakes if things don't work out anyway. So.
Absolutely. And you mentioned earlier that when you were in New York, you were doing 5 part-time jobs while managing your kid. How did you survive?
Yeah, that was really, really tough. Like I said, I had no family or friends. I worked as a psychiatric nurse from 9 to 5. And then I used to go to Applebee's and waitress in the evenings. And I used to leave my daughter at home. And I used to put a Skype call on with like a friend or a friend of the family. They would like babysit her over Skype. But
Wow.
essentially, it was probably illegal because she was home alone. But that was the only way I could make money. And then at the weekends, I would take her with me. I used to teach soccer to little kids, so she could come along to that. I used to teach online cooking lessons. I used to have an Etsy store selling things. What else was that? All of them. Oh, in the bartending as well. I got my bartending license, so I was there in the evenings at the weekends. So yeah, just doing everything I could to stay afloat because it's not a cheap place to live.
No, it's not.
No.
What did you learn the most from that period? How long did this period last when you were balancing 5 jobs?
It was about 2 or 3 years. Yeah, I was only in New York with my husband for the first year and a half to 2 years before he left me. It was actually quite funny. He left me for another FBI agent he had went on a sort of work trip with. It was difficult these years. I'm just so glad that I got through it. Like I said, I won the lottery, so that was a fluke though. I don't even play the lottery. I actually I won a scratch card from my daughter's school, like through some sort of raffle, and I took the scratch card to the shop and it won me a lucky dip on the scratch card, a take four. So I handed it in, and it wasn't jackpot, but it was enough to clear off my debts, my credits, and then, yeah, like I said, next step was to take that step to go to Hong Kong.
With the lottery, you part of what you won, that amount, you used it to go to Hong Kong.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And you've never been to Asia at this point?
Nope, never been to Asia. Yeah, never really been. Like I said, Scottish. I hadn't really went anywhere. New York was about it, other than a few like European trips when I was younger.
I see. And then when you arrived in Hong Kong, this is around 2016. What was that period like for you when you just, touched down in Hong Kong, never been here, don't know anyone? You do know actually a few friends. You were saying 1 or 2 friends.
Yeah, yeah. So I had my one friend from New York and I managed to get that apartment right underneath her. So, and I managed to get, because I have my English degree, it's very easy to get a teaching job. Even if you don't have an English degree, any type of degree allows you to apply for a visa. So I got a job before I even moved there,
Wow,
and
that's
the
great.
the visa and everything was all sorted out, really well paid. My daughter was able to go to school with her friend, my friend's daughter. Yeah, so it all fell into place, it all worked out, and then that's when I realized I was teaching every day. I really, really loved teaching. I did my postgraduate in education
Oh,
through
amazing.
yeah, it was done through the University of East London, and they had people in Hong Kong that would actually come out to my school and observe me teaching. So I was actually able to do it abroad in Hong Kong, but it's a UK qualification, which was really handy.
When you were in Hong Kong for how long were you in Hong Kong for? For 5 to 6 years?
7, almost
7
7.
years?
I
Almost
just
7.
missed the cutoff to get my residency.
Oh, wow. So I think the next question is, how come you decided or why did you decide to leave Hong Kong to go back to the UK?
Yeah, I really didn't want to leave Hong Kong. I loved it there. when I first moved there, like I said, I was teaching, but then I would get asked by the parents, would you tutor my kid after school? And so that's how I set up my very first business, because I had taken on so many students after school. And then at the weekends, I had no more time left. So then I would start referring them to other people, colleagues that I worked with, co-workers. Do you want a student? Do you want to tutor this student? And then
Yeah.
they ran out of time. So then I was like, do you know what I'll do? Maybe I'll hire teachers and then match them with the students, and I'll be the middleman, and I'll just take a cut of their lesson price. And that was the start of my first business. No business plan, never having done business before. It just all happened naturally. I had a friend help me with the website and the socials, and yeah, it just grew exponentially. And by 6 months, I was making six figures, and I bought myself a Tesla, and I'm just living life. It was really good at the time, yeah. Oh, but you asked me why I left.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
actually, we can get to that in a bit because now you mentioned that, you were making six figures, you were doing, the life you were living was amazing at that time.
mhm.
Was it all during COVID-19 time or was it pre-COVID,
pre
post-COVID?
Yeah, it was pre-COVID, and then actually COVID was the reason why I left. Partially. When COVID, so before that, I was working, everything was great. As you know, being from Hong Kong, there's a lot of protests, a lot of political stuff happening in Hong Kong. Then COVID happened, and the protests were then illegal because obviously we couldn't be around each other during COVID. During that time is when my daughter asked me, so the thing is with Hong Kong education, it's really, really tough, right? And my daughter was never Asian smart. She was never ever at the top of her class. She was actually always at the bottom of her class. But when she'd go back to the UK for the summer holidays, I'd get her a tutor to stay on top of her maths specifically.
Yeah.
And the tutor was always saying, she's 2 years ahead of the kids here. She's so
Wow.
smart. She's at the top of her class. And she loved that. So eventually she said to me, Mum, can I go back to the UK and do school and do my GCSEs in the UK? Because that way I'll be at the top of my class rather than the bottom. So I was
Clever.
like, you know what? I've got the business here. How about you go across and stay with a family member, her dad actually, see how you get on, if you like it, and then we'll talk. It was terrible. Her dad's never been in her life, doesn't know how to raise a child, and he threw her out. She was 14. He threw her out after 4 months. So then she had to go stay with my brother. That's when the lockdown happened. So now I've got this 14-year-old locked down with my brother, and I'm in another country. She cried to me, and she's like, I know it's not working here, but I still want to do education here. Can you please? I need you. So I was like, you know what? COVID, everything's online. All my teachers are teaching online. I'm teaching online. Okay, I'll come over. So I pack up my whole entire life, moved back to London specifically because I didn't go back to Scotland because my dad is English. He's from London and he had somewhere for us to stay. So yeah, so I stayed with my dad for a couple of months. My daughter was able to do her GCSEs here in London. Yeah, that's how I ended up packing up my life in Hong Kong. But do you know what? I'm always this kind of person who looks forward rather than behind. So everybody always asks me, "Would you go back? Would you go back?" I wouldn't, you know.
You wouldn't. No, that's great to hear. I mean, it's also a form of like not having attachment to anything. Um, and you did say something because as I'm listening to you talk, Kirit, I feel like I'm watching a movie right now, just about your whole life story. It's like you go to New York, then you go to Hong Kong, and then now you're back in London. And you said obviously you're moving forward, but I have a question for you when it comes to in a way where it's like moving backwards a bit, because the way you were describing your 20s is, right out of a movie. I could just say that. So, how would you describe your 20s in, if not one word, but three words?
That's a good question. My 20s, time of growth. It's the time where I really learned a lot about myself and the world. And I think that's the case for a lot of people in their 20s. People in their 20s now are so smart. They're way smarter than, and I'm not just mean intellectual smart, but even though they are, but just street smart and just knowing more about the world and what's happening. And that was probably because of the boom of social media and just online presence. They didn't have that really. It wasn't as popular. We had like MySpace and Bebo and Facebook maybe, but it was nothing like what we have now. So I just feel like if you're in your 20s now, you're so switched on, and just use that as your advantage because you can get so much further ahead in life if you just know more about yourself, about the world around you, and how you fit into it.
That was a great answer, Kieran.
Ah,
I
thanks.
I could relate in the sense where it's like, definitely time of growth wise, but for you especially, I mean, I take that as the one word or like a few words kind of combined in that case. But yeah, no, that's really good. And then talking about now moving ahead, you obviously moved back to London, and
Yeah.
now you're probably thinking to yourself, what am I going to do? I mean, were you still keeping up with the tutoring business, or did you have other business ideas?
Yeah, so I still had my education company in Hong Kong, which I was running remotely 2, 3 days a week. And then I had these other 2 days. So I was like, what should I do? Well, I want to try out teaching here. I'd never taught in the UK before. So I was eager to do some substitute teaching and see what it was like. And to be honest, it was terrible. I hated it. I became one of these people who just hated waking up on a Monday, hated waking up to go to school. The kids, I felt more like a babysitter. And I don't know if this is because I was a substitute teacher. So you'd go into the classroom and the teacher has already planned the lesson. So you have no control of what you're teaching. No control. The kids don't respect you. They know that you're only there for a day. They play up. It was just horrible. I was splitting up fights and all sorts of things. So
Oh, gee.
at that, yeah, at that point, actually, I was reading a book called Ikigai. Do you know it?
I have heard of it. I mean, I don't read that much, but I have heard the name.
Mm. So Ikigai is actually, well, they've put it into a book, but it's actually a Japanese philosophy, and it's all about finding one's purpose. And what I love about it is it's quite logical. It comes as a Venn diagram. So in the middle is your purpose, and then I think it has 4 circles, and each of the circles, one of them says things things that I love. Things that I can get paid for is another circle. Things that the world needs is in the third circle. And I always forget what's on the fourth circle. But basically, as I was reading this book, I had a teacher come to me and ask me, would you take on a new teacher? Can I have a job, basically? And I said, I'm not taking on any new teachers. How about I help you? I'll make you a flyer. You can hand it out or distribute it and get students. So I did that. And they said to me, wow, you're really good at this graphic design. Like this flyer is really cool. At that point, I'm thinking about my Venn diagram, things that I love to do. I love to design. I've designed educational resources and books and handouts and all sorts of stuff like that. And then things that I love to do. I love to do that. Things I can get paid for, things that the world needs, all of them aligned. And I was like, oh my God, I think I have to be a graphic designer. And it was at that stage where I threw myself, immersed myself in graphic design, branding, and marketing. I learned everything I could: YouTube, self taught, Adobe certifications, any free courses I could do, I would do them. And then I
Wow.
was like, right, it's time for me to leave teaching and go be a graphic designer. So I started doing the job search and then realized at the age of, I must have been about 36 or 37, nobody wanted a 37-year-old intern. Like they only want to hire out of university. And I didn't have a university degree in graphic design. So I was like, okay, let me look at the junior jobs. So I'm looking at applying for junior jobs. They wouldn't give me a job as a junior either. I didn't have a portfolio. I hadn't worked on any clients before. So what did I do? Well, the only thing I knew how, which was to set up my own business and find my own clients and do it myself. So that's how I started networking, meeting people, and I started House of Cult Brands, which is my design agency.
Wow. And when you were going to these events or networking with people, how did you put yourself out there with zero experience?
I mean, I'm quite a talkative person. I've got ADHD, so I never run out of things to say. And yeah, just being really honest with people and just doing my best to. I mean, when you give, it comes back to you. I really do think it comes back to you tenfold. So if I was going to networking events and they would give me their business card, I'd say, oh, you do realize that if you did this or you changed this little tweak, tried to give them as much help as I could, just
Yeah.
free, just advice, and that really worked. And they'd come back to me and be like, oh, do you know what, I know someone who might need a little bit of help. And then the clients started to come, and it was at that point I realized that even if I booked out my whole entire calendar with clients, I would never be able to help everybody that I wanted to help. And
Yeah.
so I thought, how can I give them the knowledge in design and branding and marketing that they can help their business? I thought about Substacks and newsletters and online platforms, but I didn't really want to be online. In that moment as well, I was looking for a publication for myself, a design publication that I could sit down and flip through and read. And I thought, you know what, it'd be really cool if I had a publication and in it they could just read about how to improve their business and how to design a pitch deck and all of these fun things.
Yeah.
And that's when I came up with my current business, my third business, which is Brand Cult.
Brand cult. So
Yes.
could you please, Kieran, tell us a bit more about brand cult?
Yeah. So like I said, Brand Cult's a newspaper. It's the UK's first award-winning print only business newspaper for entrepreneurs and founders. And essentially, every month I interview UK businesses and founders, and I put together a newspaper once a month and I mail it out to my readers. And actually, it's not just a newspaper dropping through the post box. It's actually a whole experience. It comes wrapped in tissue paper and sealed with a wax stamp. And actually, when they break open the wax stamp, I've had a custom scent made so that they can smell Branco. And it's like I said, it's a whole experience. And then they can just, I want to encourage time away from screens so that they can sit and intentionally read about how they can improve their business and take advice and change their perspective on things. So, yeah,
Wow. And how long has it been since you launched brand cult?
I'm working on issue 9, so 9 months.
9 months. Wow. So what was this journey like when you moved back to London? This was 2021, 2022,
Yeah, 21, I think it was. Yeah.
2021. And then you, from 2021, 2022, 2023, you're going through your graphic design era, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It was tough. And then I found the love of my life as well. So that was a new addition to my life. And um, also, that's when my daughter, when I was 28, 38, sorry, my daughter turned 18 and she finished her education here in London and told me that she was moving up to Scotland. She was going to have a
Well,
gap year and she was going to train as a dental nurse during her gap year and then apply for dental school the year after, which is this year. So she was leaving me essentially. I had this new career, this new life as like I've always been the single mum, but now I don't have a child because she's left me. So it all changed during those years.
wow. And I'd say to you, Kieran, what kept you going, especially during the darkest days? What kept you going to persevere and find a way to live?
To be honest, it's survival. It's that primal instinct to survive. And a lot of times people hear my story and they say, wow, you should be so proud of yourself. You're doing so well. And I always say to them, I'm not really that proud of all the things that I've done because I did them all out of necessity. Like I literally couldn't live in New York City any longer. The debt was it was getting higher and higher. I couldn't live there any longer. And so out of necessity, out of survival, I moved to Hong Kong. And same
Yeah.
again, when it came time to leave Hong Kong, it was out of survival, not necessarily for myself, but for my daughter to give her the better life. You know, she couldn't have an education in Hong Kong, so I needed to be there for her, and it's just doing what needs to be done, and like I said, taking that risk, even though it's uncomfortable.
You're actually putting yourself in these positions where you are from Scotland originally, but you're going to these cities that are the world's most expensive cities. York,
Yeah.
New York, Hong Kong, and London. And obviously you were able to survive all of it. So good to know actually, and good for you for getting through all of that over the years. Just have one more question now for you, Kieran, and that is thinking about everything you've accomplished over the past years, I guess you could say. What would you say to your 18/19-year-old self?
I would tell my younger self to educate yourself a little bit more because like I said, I was so naive. I didn't know about the world, and I feel like that makes a world of difference. But also to take the risks and don't be afraid to be different because designing a different way is the best way to create new opportunities. You might not always stand out or you don't want to follow the same path as anybody else. You need to design your own way. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great piece of advice, Kierian. And thank you so much for joining me here today on the Go Manav. For those who would like to get your contact details or find the best way to connect with you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to connect with me personally, you can find me on LinkedIn. It's Kierian Cameron on LinkedIn. If you want to follow the newspaper, it's brand.cultuk at Instagram. And, I'd also like to offer your listeners a mystery discount on Brand Cult. If they're interested in subscribing to the newspaper, yeah, I can give you a link to a mystery discount.
Oh, that's amazing. Yes. So whoever's listening, make sure to drop Kieran a line as well and prove that you did listen to the full episode. But yes, I mean, Kieran's happy to help, and that's amazing. Really appreciate that, Kieran. And for those watching, make sure to like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. A new guest will be on very soon. Thank you, Kieran, for joining me here today, and hopefully I'll see you in person soon.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks everyone for listening.